Okay, everybody. Wow, it's Tuesday. It's snowing out. It's wonderful, isn't it? Oh my gosh. And today marks the 60th anniversary of the classic film Psycho by none other than Alfred Hitchcock. Holy cow, 60 years old, 60 years young. Still such an amazing film that's constantly being revisited and rediscovered by so many people. Just as a quick little intro to everybody out there, we are joined by a fantastic panel, starting with Theresa Mercado of Scream. Hello, Theresa.
Hello.
Oh, nice.
You come prepared in case something goes down, huh?
Always.
That's awesome. And then CU film professor Andrew Scahill. Hello, Andrew.
Hey, guys. See you.
And as I understand it, you have one or two of your film students tuning in. Supposedly.
Yeah, that's so we hopefully ask some questions here along the way.
Excellent. And then we have cinematographer Robert Muratore. How are you, sir?
Great, thanks.
Good. And Robert has the distinction of working on a Hitchcock, a Psycho documentary called, what was it, 7852? Is that right?
That's right. That's it.
Excellent. See, I'm like I said, I'm learning my numbers, so math is starting to stick with me. That's great. And then we also have filmmaker Stephen Morgan, director of the film Rook that just came out. How you doing, sir?
Excellent. Doing fabulous. Glad to be here with all you psychos. You like that?
That's great. Thanks, guys, for being so generous with your time. Just for everybody out in internet TV land, Psycho, as everybody knows, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, based on the book by Robert Bloch. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Probably not. And then screenplay by Joseph Stefano, featuring Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates, Janet Leigh as Marion Crane, and Vera Miles, John Gavin, Martin de Balsam, and John McIntyre, with so many more. But I think that's the main cast. And if things serve me right, well, if memory, which is, as we all know, is fading really quick with me. North by Northwest was the previous movie that Alfred Hitchcock did. Big, expansive, in color. And shortly after that, he decided to do the movie Psycho, which was more of a smaller microcosm of a film, more intimate settings, black and white, and with TV crews. Andrew, I know you've done a lot of research on Psycho and Alfred Hitchcock. Can you talk about, why Hitchcock decided to make, a film like this with Psycho?
I mean, a lot of reason. I mean, it is in some ways a break from his more prestige films, as you mentioned, like North by Northwest. But, he's always been a showman, someone who's very interested in audiences and kind of taking them on an experience, right? A very visceral director, you could say, which is why horror kind of works so well for him. So he's looking, I think, at some of the theater gimmicks of like William Castle, who's making films in the 50s and doing skeletons in the theater and insurance policy sales during the films. And he's seen how that work, for American audiences. And so it's a really great example of a film that is like a film, but it's also an event. And Hitchcock understood it as an event. And he knew that part of it was cultivating anticipation for it and using those sort of tactics to create suspense before the film, even begins. And I think it's one of the kind of brilliant things about how it changed exhibition overall. People talk about this as the first film that required audiences to stand in line, for instance. So yeah, absolutely. It's a fascinating kind of shift in his career, that's taking some of those previous techniques and really kind of pushing them into overdrive.
Nice. The one thing I got from rewatching the movie over the weekend to kind of bolster up what I remember, what little I know of Psycho for this conversation, was I saw so many parallels and so many beginnings of tropes that you really see in such movies as like Halloween and even Friday the 13th. Speaking towards the horror side of things, you've got Janet Leigh's character. She embezzles $40,000 of money from her job and is on the run, and is also participates in extramarital affairs. I mean, she's not married, but she's in a relationship with a married man and stuff. And then goes to the motel, checks in. She's on the run, and has the unfortunate thing of meeting Norman Bates, and just as she's like realizing, oh, I need to do the right thing, her life is extinguished. Theresa, you've got such an extensive background curating films for screen. Are these tropes that you think might have been established with film like this film or films like it?
Absolutely. So I consider Psycho to be the first slasher movie. I mean, debatably, Halloween, which you had mentioned, but I think modern slasher movies began in 1974 with Bob Clark's Black Christmas, which was 4 years. I'm not very good with math. Before Halloween, John Carpenter, 79, 78. Psycho, 1960, that slasher shower scene, and then obviously the other knife scenes. Hands down, this was the first slasher movie, without a doubt. But that subgenre did not become into vogue until the 70s with Black Christmas. And then Halloween is when it skyrocketed, and filmmakers realized that they could make money off that genre, which then, the first half of the 80s was nothing but slasher movies once it was realized those could be profitable and that kids loved watching them and their parents loved watching them. I want to rewind too, because Marion Crane is not sleeping with a married man. He's actually separated from his wife because he talks about paying alimony. But their relationship is absolutely forbidden because not on the up and up. Oh, can you please turn our TV on?
Oh yeah, I just saw your TV turn on.
Sorry.
No worries.
We're gonna watch Psycho right now.
Awesome.
Anyway, so she's definitely in a not appropriate relationship with a separated man, and they're sleeping together, though not in a committed relationship. And that first opening scene when they're together, and he says, "Oh, when can I see you again?" And she says, "Oh, at my house with my mother's picture on the wall and my sister joining us for dinner." And he's like, "Oh, and then when your sister leaves."
Portrait to the wall.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the movie is so controversial and so racy before you even get into the murder and Norman Bates and everything. She's sleeping with this separated man. They're not in a relationship. They're in a sexual relationship, which, we don't bat an eye at now, but that was pretty racy for back then. She's a single working woman. She embezzles this money. Also unheard of at this time, and is that the protagonist is killed off at the end of the first act.
Right.
And there's so many things in the film that are, that MacGuffin or red herring that set us up to go in one direction that end up being completely irrelevant, such as the money
right.
that she wraps in the newspaper ends up being nothing. It goes in the car to never be seen again. The cop that pulls her over on the side of the highway, follows her to the used car dealership, watches her buy the car, and then doesn't ever pursue it again when they know she's up to something.
Yeah.
So yes, I think it's the first slasher movie in my opinion. Some people might argue with that. And I just think also, it's such a strong movie. It's such a bold, racy movie for the time that it was made, 1960. Also, Hitchcock was 60 when he made the movie. And, as Andrew had mentioned, North by Northwest before that, but Psycho became, dare I say, one of the biggest movies ever on planet Earth. Like, right. I would say even kids that haven't seen it would know the knife scene, would know would recognize imagery from it. It's perhaps the most famous movie of all time.
Yeah. And, with the shower scene being just so monumentally influential, especially to filmmakers and such, Robert, you worked on the documentary about the shower scene. Can you kind of share with us, some of the technical aspects that you've learned, or things that you got that while working on it, kind of gave support of all the things that were so influential?
Sure. Yeah. It's definitely an iconic scene in movie history. And part of that, I think, is because of the amount of time they spent on it. They took 7 days to shoot that scene. And so the documentary, our documentary is called 7852 because there were 78 setups and 52 cuts in just a couple of minutes. So it was pretty masterfully put together. Part of the reason he shot in black and white is that he could get away with more blood because it was not red. I think a big influencer to black and white was that it was less expensive, and of course he was on a really tight budget, which was under $1 million at the time, and but a very small budget for what he had been used to. So yeah, they spent 7 days on that scene, which is incredible. They had a lot of different crazy setups. Not once do you actually see the knife penetrate skin. There's a shot that looks like the knife is actually penetrating her stomach, but it's shot in reverse, and they started with the knife kind of on the edge of the skin. So if you consider that, how violent and disturbing it is, and how little it compares to a lot of the gore that you see nowadays in horror films and some of the extreme violence and how it's portrayed. It's pretty amazing how much it scared people and how distressing the entire scene was. So, and one of the big problems was the last shot of the murder where they're twirling out of Janet Leigh's eye, and so part of that's an optical too. So they had to do like an optical where they twirl the image, and then they cut into the live part of the shot, which is pretty crazy. For the time, it was a pretty amazing shot, and I think even today it holds up. Most people wouldn't necessarily recognize that. And it would be an entire shot, but there's one cut where they have to go to the shower head because there was just a little bit of a twitch in Janet Leigh's eye. I think Hitchcock's wife saw in the dailies or afterwards, and so they had to cut out of that shot because it's a really incredibly long shot that backs up into the other room and ends up on newspaper. So technically speaking, even by today's standards, it's really amazing.
Yeah,
I love that shot.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. I remember watching it this weekend and just kind of keeping my eye on her eye, and just watching how that's drawn out and stuff. And it's like, man, that is just painstaking. Yeah. When I see something like that, I can't help but think of like how painstaking, somebody like Kubrick would be. I guess, Alfred was kind of, and correct me if I'm wrong, I might be projecting, but I'd imagine that Alfred Hitchcock was, kind of just as, intense in his caretaking of what the shot's going to be.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, well, another shot in that scene too, which is interesting, is the silhouette. When he pulls the curtain back, or she pulls the curtain back, and it was actually a stunt woman with black makeup on to really, because they were in a white bathroom, and as a cinematographer, it's really hard to make somebody a silhouette in a white environment like that, because light's bouncing everywhere. And that was one of the tricks they used. And again, like, you would never think of it. You would never, I mean, it's seamless. It works perfectly. And of course he wanted a woman to portray Norman in those particular shots, because that's what he wanted the audience to believe. And incidentally to it, and to backtrack a little bit, this is, I think, the first film where they didn't allow audience members to walk in after the movie had started, because it was so contingent upon like the surprises and obviously what happened at the end of the first act. So that's another interesting milestone that this film takes credit for.
People don't realize it was actually kind of common before this time to just go to the movie theater, and maybe you would walk in the middle of the film and you would stay through the next showing. That wasn't an uncommon kind of practice for spectatorship, but this really changed things. And you had to wait in line and you had to anticipate, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Waiting in line, that kind of, also, kind of, pushes into like when we go see like big blockbuster films. I'd imagine, especially when something like Jaws, which has a lot of scares and surprises, but after that, Star Wars too. Mm-hmm. To some extent, I think Theresa and Andrew were commenting on how big and how popular Psycho was. I think that also reflected in the box office, and that also forced a lot of reviewers to have to go back and rewatch it again, because the first reviews were not wonderful. So I think that's pretty interesting. Yeah, Stephen, you're a filmmaker. You're in the director's chair quite a bit. Was Psycho a film that was pretty influential on you, or Alfred Hitchcock?
I saw Birds way before I saw Psycho. Nice. And it scared the crap out of me as a kid. But when I was finally allowed to see Psycho, it was just like shocking, but I was a kid, and so it was like, it didn't necessarily make me feel afraid. I remember the first act a lot more than I remembered the second and third act, because the second and third act is basically like a detective story, and a lot more of like I guess you could call it closer to like a noir or something like that, maybe something closer to what Hitchcock had done before. But the stuff that I really remember is like how it made me like second guess myself with his mother, because they take you all the way through, and every step of the way they're like, oh man, there's no way, they're like, oh, there's someone up there. He's like, there's no one up there. And it bounces back and forth all the way until you get to the scene with the sheriff, and he's like, he lets them go through their whole story before he's like, oh, she's dead, and that can't possibly be the mother. Now you're like, well, then who the heck is it? And then they get in there, and then Hitchcock does the same shot where he goes up above. Remember, like, he goes up above the stairs and then he twists it around and like puts it right back into the same framing. And you're like, it is the mother. And then, yeah, it just like goes back and forth. That's what I remember as being like, what the heck is going on here? Nice. And then, but as a filmmaker, I mean, like, you could analyze this movie, for a long time, but it's slightly different than like analyzing like a Kubrick movie, because Kubrick movies feel like you're analyzing Kubrick, And Hitchcock movies feel like you're analyzing yourself almost. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
I can see myself doing something stupid out of passion, you know, stealing money or something because I just don't have any, like, it's impulsive, you know?
Right.
And then, like, just to see the steps that she didn't deserve to get murdered for it, but,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, this is something that Hitchcock does a lot, right? That he makes you want something, and then he gives you more than you wanted, right? And so Marion Crane does something bad, and you're like, nah, she should be punished. And then he murders her, and you're going, oh, I don't want that. Right? It really kind of speaks to him as a Catholic director, right? He's very much about making you feel guilty for what you wanted.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel too that also sets itself up for the trope for the slasher films. You know, somebody does something wrong or society doesn't deem right, and the ultimate force, you know, that cracks that is Mike Myers or Jason or, you know, Spicoli from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I don't know, but yeah, I think that's the other thing too that comes to mind is, and it always does with whenever it's a Hitchcock film, is the visuals and the composition. And I think Psycho, you know, has no shortage of the framing and the composition. When they're having Janet Leigh and Anthony Perkins are having that initial conversation, they start talking about taxidermy, which, you know, Theresa, I know you like a little bit, and then you know, Anthony Perkins, is talking. His character Norman Bates is talking about birds and how easy it is to do taxidermy and stuff. And I feel that he's starting to project, you know, onto her that, you know, how fragile, you know, birds are. And, you know, it's like, oh crap, he's, you know, there's like a glimmer of like, she's prey, you know. There's a little bit of foreshadowing, even though he's not, you know, completely you know, like just, you know, hammering it over her head that he's gonna, you know, kill her. But then you've got you know, birds in the shot, you know, on, you know, framed in images of birds, you know, framed on the wall and stuff. And I'm just like, oh crap. And of course, afterwards, after the murder, you know, he knocks down one of the, I think it's one of the framed images of a bird after he discovers her body and everything. And after, of course, he did the deed. But I thought that was pretty striking. Yeah, just to see that, and a little bit of that foreshadowing, and then seeing, you know, some of the taxidermy in the shot, you know, before, after, and during, you know, when they're referencing things. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's so gorgeous. You know, I think, Robert, you were mentioning too about how they shot, because they shot in black and white, you know, they couldn't do that red and you know, all the gore that goes with it. But there's a sense of like nostalgia and timelessness that goes to it, and I think that lends itself better than if it were to be in some type of brilliant color.
Sure, yeah, I think so too. I mean, it was out of necessity, you know, because of the budget and because of getting it past the, you know, the ratings board or whatever at the time. So he, I mean, he really had to make that work, but I think it works great as an aesthetic, you know, to it, and there's a lot of, he does a lot with framing and a lot with shadow. So, you know, even though so many films have been shot in color up to that point, I think he used that medium to his advantage. And it does have like, I mean, I can't, that's part of the reason why the remake, I think, you know, fails in so many ways, because it was in color. And it, you know, I mean, there are a lot of reasons why it fails. They could never, you know, replicate the scene. You know, we talked to the woman who edited Gus Van Sant's version, and she said they edited it shot for shot, shot for shot, and it didn't work. So they just could not get it to work. And so they had to go back and add different shots and change the timing of that scene, try and, you know, make something out of it, because it's, you know, again, the shower scene is one of those, you know, perfect storms that it was just really hard to replicate. And I don't think anyone's obviously done it, that, especially to that degree. I mean, there's nothing out there like it.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, other scenes are iconic too that can't really be replicated, like the chestburster scene from Alien. We did a documentary about that, and that's the same thing. It's like, once it's done and it's done well, like it's never, like, there were no chestburster scenes in any of the following Alien films that could possibly hold a candle to that first one and have that kind of impact. And I think that's, you know, that's part of the shower scene's power as well.
Robert, do you think that I've been curious about this actually, because story-wise, it's a great story and it twists and turns and stuff, but up until that moment in the shower scene, it's pretty standard, like, I got a problem, this money falls into my lap, I'm just going to make an impulsive decision and go, and then boom, I'm just in the wrong decision, or in wrong place, wrong time kind of thing. I mean, do you think that scene was like what they built the movie around? Like, you have a lot more experience on this, but I mean, do you think that they were like, hey, this scene is going to make movie history? Like, I didn't read the book, you know what I mean? So I don't know how pivotal that scene was, and were they expecting that? Were they expecting it to be a big?
Yeah, I'm sure he put a lot of stock in how that scene was going to play, and I think it was really important to Hitchcock that it had a huge impact, to the point where I think he had his assistant buy up all the Robert Bloch books so people wouldn't know.
I heard about that.
And even though in the book it's far more violent. Like, he actually had Mary Crane. Her name is Mary Crane in the book. So it's actually more violent and gory. So I mean, he did make several changes. I mean, even Norman Bates in the book is like overweight and unattractive and very different looking physical character than he is in Psycho. And Hitchcock just knew, like, he had this idea to make him, you know, like thin, good looking, and have a certain charm. I mean, he's obviously a little nuts, but Anthony Perkins is, you know, up to that point, he had been in films where he was like the high school, you know, football star, those kind of roles. So this was a severe departure from what he had done before, and I think that all worked in Hitchcock's favor, you know, to create that surprise. But I think a lot hinged on that scene, and that's one reason why Hitchcock wouldn't allow people in too soon or early into the theater. I think other people could probably answer that a little bit more in depth than I could, but
I love that you brought up Anthony Perkins, because you're right. He was like a little teen pinup boy before this. I call him like the Zac Efron of his era, really. And this is before directors did stunt casting, right? That wasn't really a thing to cast actors against type, but Hitchcock does it repeatedly. He does it with Cary Grant, right? And so there are lots of things that the film does to make Anthony Perkins seem like a victim rather than aggressor. Even in the poster design, it has Anthony Perkins holding his hand and sort of screaming, as you would expect a woman, right, to be portrayed in a poster of the era. So I think it's really brilliant kind of to do that stunt casting in an era where that wasn't the norm at all.
Yeah, that's a great point.
When I think Norman Bates, you know, is very much a victim. Whatever bizarre incestual Oedipal relationship that he has with Norma, you know, he kills her. He kills her lover. He's obviously haunted by some pretty serious demons. He's been knocking off people at the motel for some time, you know, but he's definitely a victim in his own right too, and has been locked away in this house with his mother for God knows how long, and then, you know, just finally kills them and snaps. And there's my favorite scene is not the shower scene. While I love the shower scene, I love the conversation that he has with Marion in the back of the motel when he makes her sandwiches.
Yeah.
And they talk about the birds and how she eats like a bird. He talks about why he prefers stuffing birds over stuffing beasts, which is kind of just, funny. While he doesn't stuff his mom, he does preserve her body in the basement for years and moves her around throughout the house and, pretends that he's her. And just kind of always laugh at that statement of, he doesn't like the look of stuffed beasts. But yes, I always feel a little sorry for Norman because he's been through some shit. And, he's a little bit of a victim too. He things have been a little rough. Mom was nuts.
I have a question. About that scene actually that maybe someone can answer. When he says people never run away from anything, and then it just like stops, and then the whole line of questioning starts a different direction. Like I always thought that was. I don't know what that means. What does that mean? Does anyone know what that means when he says? He says, "What are you running from?" She says, "Well, I got to be running from something." And he's like, "Well, people never run away from anything." And then it just like pivots, and it feels like such an important moment and an important line, but I don't know what he means by that. Does it come back somewhere else?
That's a good question.
It's just stuck out with me. I don't know. Like it's like maybe he to talk about what you're saying. Like maybe he was sort of held captive as a kid or something. Maybe maybe he himself doesn't run from it. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well,
it's just always
Part of what defines Norman's character, I would say, is that he's stuck in the past, right? He's in stasis. Even his child bedroom is the same as when he was a kid, and it's kind of about his inability to move forward, right? And then he shares that with Marion, right, who is also trapped by this past decision that she made. And he says that she says that we're both in our own little trap. We're all in our own little traps, right?
Yeah.
Right. That's right.
That's right.
Well, it's a little bit of foreshadowing too, that line, it seems, like she's really not going to be able to run away from this.
Yeah.
She's not going anywhere. Actually.
Right.
So do you think he made up his mind at that point? Like that, what do you think? Because when she says, why don't you put your mom in a plate, in a what does he say? And put him in somewhere, put her somewhere. And then he says, you mean an institution?
Yes.
I feel like that's, especially with cinematography, that's the moment when it cuts to a different point of view and he kind of leans forward and does this thing, and it's like, that's when the music comes back in and all that stuff.
Robert, it's in your documentary how maybe it was Elijah Wood and that group, they talked about how he's so fidgety before that moment, and then when he sort of starts that monologue about have you ever been to one of those places, he's so calm, right? And everything is controlled at that moment.
Yeah. I'm sorry, were you asking me a question about that, or you just...
No, I was commenting on Steven's point about how the mood of that scene really changes in that sequence. There's something interesting too in that scene where when they do a reverse shot with him and Marion talking, Marion's camera angle remains stable, right? But every time we cut to Norman, he's from a different angle, and it's very disconcerting. But she remains kind of the same in the frame.
No, it's great. There's so many like visual cues in that film, like all the spirals too. That's another thing. But of course, that was Hitchcock's kind of. Vertigo also has spirals, so that was kind of a common theme in this film too. But there are a couple shots in the shower scene where there's a lot of negative space, where Marion's on the lower part of the frame, or part of that. I think it's a way to unsettle the audience, subconsciously, and it does. It's non-conventional, and just like you talked about, the way he was cutting that scene together was unsettling, and gave you like these visual cues subconsciously of maybe his broken psyche, somehow. but there's so much creepiness to that scene, that leads up to the murder. So it's certainly really interesting. You could definitely like take apart that whole scene, their conversation, even maybe to the extent of the shower scene. I'm not sure.
Yeah, one thing too that comes to mind is the very end of the film when Norman's been apprehended, and the authorities are talking about how the personality of the mother is kind of taken over, and as the camera's pulling away from that last frame where he's having that conversation in his head, and he's clearly apprehended and stuff. Looking at that film and that scene from like the contemporary perspective of having franchises and stuff, it's like, oh, this opens itself up to having a sequel. Norman's story has the potential to continue. I mean, back then you don't have sequels. Filmmakers set out to tell their self-contained story, and that's it, typically. But come the 80s, people, especially with the slasher film aspect being so prevalent, apparently it was time to revisit what's Norman Bates been up to, and so I thought it's like, oh yeah, that totally sets itself up for some type of continuation, and bring it back. I honestly, I can't. I'm pretty sure I've seen the sequel, and there was a third one too. I never saw the third one. But I think the sequel I saw like when I was in high school in the 90s. I couldn't tell you what it was about or how it came about. But, can anybody speak to that? If it actually. Oh, that's.
So Norman is found too crazy to be responsible or whatever. So it kind of it literally starts with the shower scene. From part 1 is the beginning of Psycho 2. And then Norman's in court. He's acquitted because he's mental. And they return him back to the house. And then his like parole officer or whoever he is like, man, because of those budget cuts, I'm not going to be able to check on you very often. You better be good, Norman. And he's like, okay. And he's like scared shitless. And so he's back in the mansion, and he gets a job as a short order cook in a diner. And a waitress from the diner moves in and is his roommate. And of course, there's notes in the house that are like, I don't want that whore in my house. Love mom. Love mom. And then, of course, people start getting killed, and everybody's like, it's that Norman Bates. We knew it. We knew he could never come out. And I mean, you can kind of imagine where it goes from there.
Right. Didn't Anthony Perkins, wasn't he the director on that? The third one? Okay.
Pretty sure it was the third one.
Okay. Wow.
I saw that the sequel has like a 6.5 or something on IMDb, which I was like, I've never seen it, but I was like, wow, that's pretty high, honestly, for a sequel.
Huh.
But I'd love to see it.
Yeah, it's. I think culture certainly has built up a mythos, around the story of Norman Bates. You've got the prequel TV series, Bates Motel. I've seen, I think, the first 2 seasons. I thought it was a pretty fun, dramatic piece.
It's really smart TV show, actually. It takes moments that from the film and kind of flips them. There's a scene early on in the show where Norman has to clean up after his mother, committing a murder, which is really kind of smart. And then it follows the events and does the kind of aftermath too. It's a really smart. And going back to this idea of like Norman caught in stasis, one of the cool things the show does too is that they're kind of like temporally dislocated in the show. They dress like they're in the 60s. They listen to music from the 50s, except it's set in the present day. It's a really interesting way to do.
Oh, interesting.
The way it uses time is really fascinating.
Specifically to transport the viewer, maybe
to to make the Bates seem like out of time in a sense.
Right. Wow. That's pretty cool. Stephen, as a filmmaker, do you go back and reference films like this? Like, if you're working on a set or you're working on a script or something, and it's like, okay, here's kind of a play-by-play of the mechanics. How do I get this emotion or get this feeling or get this transition? Do you reference films like this?
Every moment of every yeah. I could probably tell you where every scene from our movie comes from something else, and it's something that's like, oh man, I love this movie. I love this moment in Snatch, or I love this moment in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, where like there's a moment in our movie where the guy shoots the gun and it kicks, throws back and hits him in the face and busts his nose, and he's just like, he's just a bad criminal. And it kind of played off of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang when Robert Downey Jr. does that. So it's like, yeah, I mean, we steal everything. It's nice. It's very, I mean, you try to make it fresh. You try to say, okay, how has someone not done this before? But I mean, any director or anyone in the film industry got into it because they loved movies and they wanted to do something similar to what they'd seen. So yeah, I mean, yeah, yes.
I mean, Hitchcock was stealing things all the time too. He kind of replayed moments from Diabolique. He would remake his own scenes in other movies. He even remade his own movie, The Man Who Knew Too Much. So,
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, the color version that we know is just a remake of his own movie. So yeah, I mean, his idea of originality wasn't like it just springs from your head, fully formed.
Well, if you're gonna reference and steal from somebody, steal from the best. I mean, look at Brian De Palma. He made a career out of stealing from Hitchcock, right? right.
But incredibly well and making amazing films.
I mean, taking something and kind of like twisting it is originality. You know what I mean? It's like it's paying homage, but it's also creating something new out of existing materials, and that's art.
It's high risk and high reward too, because if you screw it up, you're done.
It's true. That's true.
People won't forget it if you homage something and you make it bad.
Well,
hence Psycho, the remake.
Yeah. Well, and like what Steven said, the remake and what we were talking about earlier, one thing that comes to mind, with the Gus Van Sant film is, and I've never had much interest to see it. It's like, well, if you're going to see a carbon copy, go see the original. But to me, it does reference, like, it's instead of just a remake, it sounds like a clone where people's come away with it with a lesser takeaway. There's nothing new to offer. However, it sounds like with the sequels, there's the continuation of the story, so that's new. That develops the character to some degree, and then with Bates Motel, now you've got the kind of that prequel, that undercurrent, the foundation of what could have been. The other thing too is like the Robert Bloch book that the film's based off of. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is some of that was based off of the Ed Gein story. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you see that that person, Ed Gein, being influential on other horror movies, specifically like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, to some extent like Silence of the Lambs, with the Buffalo, specifically the Buffalo Bill character.
Deranged.
What's that?
Deranged is probably the most famous Ed Gein movie. That's the most accurate.
And Theresa, forgive me, but I am not familiar with that. Please tell me what.
Deranged. Add it to your list. It is, it's lampshades made of skin and.
Oh, right.
having sex with the dead, you know, all that. More accurate material to the original.
Okay. So it kind of sounds like a necromantic and stuff.
Not quite.
Not quite that. Okay, good.
Can we talk about the music for a second? Because it is like one of my every time. So like I even used the opening theme in my first short film when I was like 14 years old, and I just loved it. I mean, and I didn't. Does anyone have any like interesting things about it? Because I mean, I looked up that Bernard Herrmann, like his first movie was Citizen Kane, and I was like, what? Like, how could that be your first film that you score? Like, I don't know. I love it. I think, you know, Hitchcock said it was responsible for like a third of the you know, the intensity of it or whatever. But I'm just curious if you guys know anything about it, because I just think it's incredible.
Robert, do you know anything?
Well, I mean, Hitchcock wasn't even going to use music in the shower scene. And then Bernard Herrmann talked him into just listening to what he might be able to do. And then Hitchcock loved it, so he threw it in there. So considering that, how iconic that music made that scene, or added to the scene, there were a lot of, I mean, there are places where it you know, it could have been much lesser than it was. And I mean, if you didn't have that music in it, I mean, it's hard to imagine it without it. And I was even just watching Finding Nemo with my daughter, and that music was in there. I mean, in a kid's film. I mean, so it's one of those things, just like the music from Jaws, right? I mean, everybody knows it, even if you haven't seen it. It's just part of like the cultural zeitgeist, the pop cultural zeitgeist, and just people are aware of it. And, you know, everybody knows who Darth Vader is, even if you haven't seen Star Wars. I mean, it's one of those things that really made the film. You know, I mean, the music in general in that film is brilliant, but specifically in the shower scene, it just added to the violence and the shock of what happened. So.
Yeah, I love the opening theme, and then the one that it plays when she's leaving and she's being followed by the cop and everything. You know, that whole thing. It's like
music.
Yeah. Well, it's great. Like, what the heck is going to happen? Like,
well, I think
you know, I'm afraid of cops personally, but like, I'm really afraid of that cop. Like, that cop scared the crap out of me. Like, he's like, you know what I mean? Like, right in her face, and he's terrifying, and he's a cop. Cops are supposed to be on your side, but he's terrifying.
I think that scene has such like sexual menace to it. You know what I mean? And it comes right after she gets kind of like skeezily hit on by the oil tycoon, you know, who basically offers her money for sex. And it's really fascinating. I think it's part of the architecture of the film that she gets that kind of sexual encounter, and then the cop, which feels like a sexual threat, and then and then she goes to Norman, and it's supposed to feel like a relief, right? Because he's so asexual. And I think for audiences at the time, he's also coded as queer, right? He's like an overbearing mother, and he's effeminate, and so I think all of those kind of create this red herring where you're like, oh, he's not a threat to her. Of course, she can go in the back parlor with him because he's not a sexual threat at all, especially after those two previous guys. And it's one of the great like red herrings in this film is to make him not feel like any kind of sexual threat.
You know, the moment when she leaves and goes back into her room, and he's just like sitting there in the parlor, and he's just like thinking, and then he looks over at the wall, and you're like, oh wait, he's next to her door. He's listening to her walk around, and then he looks at the painting, which is like, I believe it's of a woman being burned alive or something like that, which is
Robert. It's you would know more about this than I do.
I can't remember the name of it. I think it's like basically a rape scene. It's kind of a famous scene that's been painted a few times. I'm sorry, but I can't remember the name of it. But yeah, I mean, it has its own implications for sure. The fact that he used that particular painting.
Yeah,
but when he takes it off the wall, and you're like, oh God,
right.
Like it's like so not what you were expecting. Not what I was expecting, at least. Like, you know, because then but you're absolutely right. I never thought about it like that. Even the cop is like predatory and
you know.
Totally. Yeah, and there's that moment too when he goes to hand her the keys to the room, and he gets one, and he's like, "Nope, I'm going to choose one," right? And he has a moment of hesitation where it's like, "Do I give her the one far away? No, I'm going to choose the one right next to the parlor."
Yeah. You guys might be able to speak to this. Is now for back then, the perception might have been, one thing about the film, especially with, reviewers kind of, throwing some shade at it. But are there themes and, parts of the film that just don't hold up to today's lens?
Like politically, or like what? Like what kind of
politically? When you go back and watch films, I'll take like Big Trouble Little China, for example. I grew up enjoying that one, loving it and everything. Yeah, obviously you go back and watch it now, very racist, themes. But there's also a massive amount of sex trafficking on both sides. Even the heroes are participating in that. And so that's, and I think I've talked to Theresa and Andrew about that to some extent. But is there things that kind of stick out as sore thumbs? Andrew, you were talking about how Norman comes off as asexual, and the police officer.
Well, I think that ending in particular, where they said, "Oh, he's a transgender or transsexual," and this is definitely in that moment where that's all you had to say, right? Like, how he wants to wear women's clothes? Well, he must be psychotic, right? And like, no more explanation needed, and it's going to be several decades before that even kind of gets questioned as a discourse.
Right. Yeah, I do recall that too, and I was like, oh, geez, this doesn't feel, like, that holds itself up. So, so when you were talking about the asexuality of Norman Bates too, and it's just like, oh yeah, I did get that sense that he feels kind of safe, non-threatening. Especially, after that police officer too, and then the office situation with Mr. Oil Tycoon. Just it felt creepy all the way through, and I was like, this lady's, this poor character, is. I think she's almost justified. Just take the money on principle. Fucking go.
The guy even who gives her the money is even like, I never carry as much money unless if I can throw it away or whatever he says. Like, it's like we're all like, just take it. Like, who cares?
Yeah,
he's a tax evader anyways.
Yeah, and even in today's environment for the office, nobody just hands that amount of cash unless it's like some kind of retail based, and you go directly to the bank and you better have those receipts right away. So I was like, wow, were things back then really that for lack of a better word, liberal? It's just very very relaxed. Everybody seemed to trust everybody. To me, that just kind of speaks to the end of the 1950s mythology. That might be a good way to look at Psycho. It's like let's kill that mythology off. Unfortunately, it's in the form of Janet Leigh's character, but.
Well, horror films of the past is like the threat came from somewhere else, right? Like some, vampire from a Romanian nation. It didn't come from inside the American family. Right. And that's one of the big shifts with this film is that the American family produces monsters, right? And that you're not safe in your own space, in the shower, right? Which is supposed to be the safest space that you can have. That all those private spaces are in peril now. And one of the films he made before this, Shadow of a Doubt, is like the dark side of small town America. It's small town America as a trap that you can't escape. So absolutely, I think that's something that Hitchcock really brought to the fore, was like the threat from within the family rather than from without.
Also, the breaking of the fourth wall at the very end when he stares right at the audience and just I can't think of. I tried thinking of another movie before then that broke the fourth wall, and I couldn't remember one off the top of my head. Can anyone think of one?
Great Train Robbery. Yeah, I mean, it's rare though. You're right.
Like to leave the audience with that, you know what I mean? Like to leave them with, what is this guy serious? Like, because I don't even 100% know. I mean, I guess maybe they explain it in the later movies, but like, is he actually split personality, or is he just a really good actor? Is he? I mean, like, I don't know. When he looks at me like that, when he does that thing with his eyes, I'm like, I don't know who you are. I don't care what this guy is in the next room. Yeah.
I wanted to say something really quickly too about Andrew's comment about like safety within the family, and that threat not coming from within is also, and it's a lot more prominent in the book and also in Bates Motel in the TV series, which is the sexual relationship between Norman and Norma, which is very not really mentioned in Psycho, but that they did have an incestuous relationship, which, you know, that is obviously like cinema goers are not ready for that. And
not 1960.
He's being molested by her or whatever you want to call that, you know, abusive relationship. But that, you know, going back to his sexuality also is that when men or boys were molested by a family member or somebody, that also put their sexuality in question, especially if they were molested by like a male, that, oh, they must be homosexual because they were victimized by an older man. Or in this case, where he's been victimized by his mother, that sexuality doesn't come into play because he's like this weird, damaged abuse survivor, you know? And again, Bates Motel does go there, and the book did also go there.
Yeah, right. It's interesting. You get hints of that, I think, in the mise en scène, because the official story of the film is that she's some kind of puritanical, sex-hating monster, and yet her house is very sensual, right? There's like naked statues all over the house, which doesn't sort of jive with the official story that we get.
Oh man, with Psycho being so iconic too. We talk about the knife, the shower scene. Yeah, the movie posters, the house on the hill. That's a prominent fixture for like Universal Studios. You know, to go visit basically the amusement park and stuff. Have any of you actually gone to see that?
No.
I heard it's smaller than it seems, though.
Right. You're talking about the set on Universal? Universal? Yeah, we shot there for our film because we recreated some scenes.
Wow.
Yeah, there's like Whoville is right behind the motel, so we had to shoot around it. It was crazy. And it's I think the motel, they were telling us, I think the facade of the house was the original, but the motel was from one of the sequels. So I mean, but yeah, I mean, we spent a night there shooting. We were shooting on a documentary budget, so we had these like we did have like rain towers, but they were not that effective. So it was a crazy shoot. But the fact that we were able to shoot on the lot was great. You know, it was really fun. I mean, even with Theresa, we recreated the shower scene more from like the book's perspective to kind of show the differences. Because Norman's described much more, and yeah, there are a lot of differences in the shower scene from the book, to be honest. But yeah, it was great being there, of course, and feeling like, you know, taking part in that just a little bit in that history.
That's awesome.
That is cool. Well, cool guys. We're probably just about ready to start winding down. Is there anything on your mind that you'd like to address with in regards to Psycho?
If there's anybody alive who hasn't seen it, then remedy that immediately. It is one of the greatest movies of all time, a horror classic, a mainstream classic. Anthony Perkins' best role that he was so worried about getting pigeonholed into, and then spent the rest of his career as Norman Bates. But younger audiences that maybe haven't seen it for the first time, or you haven't rewatched it in 10, 20 years, it holds up. Rewatch it. It's incredible. Right. The first time and the 50th time.
Nice.
Yeah. I teach a class on Hitchcock, usually every other year, and part of it, I call it remaking Hitchcock, because the point I want to make is that like the Hitchcockian has become a mode, of making a film, and that as a filmmaker you can reproduce it fairly easily, given his approach to audiences, his approach to conveying information, and so it's interesting that when you say, oh, it's a Hitchcockian thriller, people kind of know exactly what you mean, which is pretty incredible, right? That it's that sort of influential as a mode of filmmaking.
No, that's cool. Well, cool.
I wish I could take that class.
I was on Zoom, so you might.
Well, yeah, guys, if we could real quick, because everybody on this panel are doing absolutely amazing things. Andrew, where can people connect with you? You've been in a number of documentaries and do a number of talks as well.
Yeah. There's been a Scream Queen documentary on Nightmare on Elm Street. I'll be in Shudder's upcoming documentary on queer horror, which I'm very excited about. But adscahill.com is my website, and I'm on Twitter at Andrew Scahill.
Nice. And then Theresa, you're always doing amazing things with Scream Screen and a whole bunch of other stuff. Where can people find you and Cult Legacy too?
Yeah, so I also co-own a horror and cult cinema apparel company called Cult Legacy, which is at cultlegacy.com or at Cult Legacy on social media. You can contact me, Scream Screen on Facebook, Scream Screen on Instagram, scream.screen. Haven't announced yet, but hopefully we'll be doing some fun stuff here coming up that I'll be announcing hopefully this week. Looking forward to the Halloween season.
Nice. And Robert, you're always just turning out, documentary after documentary with Alexandre Felipe, the director of 7852, and In Memory, and you've got a new one, Leap of Faith, about The Exorcist as well. Where can people go to see those movies?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. Actually, they're being Shudder's, I think, releasing Leap of Faith. I think next month. I should know this, but I don't, of course. And Memory is out there already. I think you could look it up. We do have a website, exhibitapictures.com, that generally has up-to-date news, but we probably not recently. Thanks for reminding me to update that. So yeah, you can find them. You can find those films out there. There's a list of films I've worked on my IMDb page, and a link to my own demo reel and on there. So and then Exhibit A is still working on future projects, which hopefully we'll have another film in a year or two. So.
Nice. Cool. Stephen, where can people go and find your film Rook?
It is on iTunes and Amazon for on demand, and it's on Amazon on Blu-ray and DVD. Or you can go to rookfilm.com, and lots of different places to find it there. And studiotown.net is our website for our production company, Studiotown. And we're going to be here in Colorado probably for the rest of my life. I don't ever plan on leaving.
Well, it's snowing right now, so good luck shoveling out.
I'm going to go put some more logs on the fire.
Excellent. Well, guys, thanks so much for being so generous with your time and coming on and chatting with us about Psycho. It's been really informative for me, and I'm sure everybody else that's been watching this. I wish we would have gotten some comments. We've got a gentleman named Matthew that says their film Vera is submitted to the Dickens Horror Film Fest, which is an homage to Psycho. So I guess we've got somebody to go out and appreciate their work too. So, well, cool guys. I'm Dan Crosier. Everybody, go out there. Find Psycho, enjoy it, add it to your catalog of films, and thanks again to my panelist guests, and have a good night.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.